Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of D All of the Above, podcast about just about everything. Today we have the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend, Chief Chuck, also known as Padre to me, my one and loving and doting father. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to do this with you.
No, 100%. Thanks for coming on. We're just going to get right into it.
Sure.
As the title, as everybody can see, is Hold the Peaches. I have to start off by asking, how does a man born and raised in North Georgia not like peaches?
For the millionth fucking time, I don't like peaches. Over the course of my 57 years, it has been 1,233,000 fucking times I have told people I do not like peaches because Georgia has absolutely no correlation with the production of peaches. It's called the peach state. Why? I don't know. Beats the living hell out of me. South Carolina, by capita and by square mile, produces more peaches to the world than any other state in the union. So yeah, I don't like peaches.
No, I had to start it off with that because I saw the tweet that you put out the other day where you're like, for the millionth time, yes, I'm from Georgia. No, I don't like peaches.
Yep.
And I had to start it off with that just because
I don't like peaches. You hear it a lot, and I'm used to it now, but I tell people, I'm like, so it's like, hey, you're from New Jersey, the asshole state. Do you eat assholes? No, you probably don't. So, yeah. So just because I'm from Georgia, the peach state, what's South Carolina, the palmetto state?
Yeah.
Okay. So you actually can eat the roots of the saw palmetto, but that's a different story for a different time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to think some other states. But yeah.
Texas, the Lone Star State.
I'll eat them.
There's more than one star in this guy, huh?
I'll eat. Oh, that's Longhorns, not Lone Stars.
Yeah, there you go.
But anyway, yeah, no, I don't like peaches. Never have. I never really. They just offend me.
I mean, hey, to each their own. But going in North Georgia, you grew up right on the edge of Lake Hartwell, right there at the South Carolina Georgia border.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like growing up in no, and this is no disrespect, but in that essentially era, because the 1960s was definitely a different time from 2021, 100%.
Yeah, no, it's funny because we had a conversation the other night. I was on a podcast YouTube thing with a guy on Twitter called Hotep Jesus. Brian is just a phenomenal young man. You can look him up at Hotep Jesus. He's a black guy who got himself famous on YouTube by going around to Starbucks and filming himself. He went into Starbucks and said, hey, why isn't Starbucks giving reparations for slavery? And what he was doing is he was filming it and punking the baristas that work in Starbucks because they really didn't know. There is no policy. And he's not like that, but he was just trying to egg them on, like, I should get a free coffee for being my parents. And he got tons of free coffee, but he's just going how stupid white people can be with their wokeness. But anyway, we were talking about that, and he asked me that about growing up in Georgia in the 60s and 70s. And honestly, we lived in a little town, Livonia. Population's like a couple thousand people. It's got one red light. It would be, normally we would call it a one dog town. You probably heard that. And, well, that's a one dog town. We were so small, we didn't even have a dog. We borrowed it from Toccoa on the weekends. We had to borrow a dog. So we didn't even have our own dog.
To be that one dog town.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, in this, I was born in 63, grew up there. It's a rural community. The county is a very rural county. It was a segregated town. And I know some people will hear that and go, what? Yeah, well, duh, it's the 60s.
It's that time.
So all the black people lived in Goose Holler. We called it Goose Holler. Later got renamed to Springview Heights. But they had their own church. I was in second or third grade when they integrated the schools. My kindergarten and first grade year, it was the black kids didn't come to school with us. We went to school, so they integrated. There was a lot of uproar from the adults, but you know what? The kids, I can remember this, is they came in and, all we were like, oh, hey, cool, new kids to play with. That's the way we looked at it. We really didn't, okay, yeah, you're a black kid, so what? We got cool. We got new people to play with. This is awesome. At the time we'd all grown up together in a little town. We played with the same 20 kids, for 7 or 8 years. So that's the only way we looked at it. And I remember Pop, he was a volunteer fireman, and when Reverend King got assassinated, they started rioting, and it was bad. Obviously, everybody was pissed off, but I remember that. I remember how scared everybody was, but I also remember that we just had to. I think it taught me a lot about honor and integrity, because the volunteer fire department was all white, but they went rushing in to Goose Holler to try to help put out buildings that were on fire. They were cutting their tires on the fire trucks, but they just kept going back over and over and over. And in the end, when everything settled down, it was just more of, there wasn't a whole lot of finger pointing like you'd see today. It was just, hey, this kind of sucked. We kind of acted shitty. What do we do to make things better? How do we get past this? And so, you grow up in the country, went to elementary school, middle school, high school, same group, less than, God, I don't even know if there was 50 people in my graduating class out of high school. So, but yeah, growing up in a rural county like that, for your demographic of listener, it's kind of hard for y'all to imagine. You guys were a world that has never not known, electronic media. You've never been alive without cable TV, wireless telephones, all this stuff. When I was growing up, you had 3 channels. TV didn't have a remote. I was the remote. Pop it through the TV guide at me on the floor and go, hey, change it to channel 7.
I mean, hell, I remember being the TV remote at the beach house in Galveston.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you grew up, and it was the thing that, without getting too big of a, and everybody can research this. But every podcast I've ever been on talking about growing up in North Georgia, if you do your research, the people of Appalachia from the mid Georgia up through the chains of South Carolina, Western South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Western Virginia, the whole Appalachian culture is really the Scottish that got thrown out, the rebels from Scotland that they either had to go to Australia or they got sent to the Appalachian Mountains of the colonies at the time. And so the people in Appalachia, it's a very strong honor culture. That's why the majority of your military today comes from the southeastern United States, Appalachian region. It's not because they're too dumb and can't get jobs other than being a meth dealer. That's part of it. But the biggest part is that, it's just that honor culture that's built into our families, from the Scottish lines who go back to the Viking lines who went to invade England, bred with the English people, got sent over here because they were on the wrong side, right or wrong, of the rebellions from Scotland. And so they settled here, and it's just that culture of, that's when the Civil War, you can see it play in the Civil War. They were willing to fight to the death. And it wasn't really about slavery or states' rights at the level of the soldier. It was about somebody's invading my homeland, Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia. Somebody's trying, South Carolina, who started it all. They came into my homeland. They're trying to tell me what to do. Try to tell a mad Viking, Scottish, Irish dude that you're going to tell him what to do. Watch what happens.
It doesn't end well.
So it was kind of growing up in an honor culture. I was lucky to grow up, 2-parent household. Pretty much, everything the way I am now is based on Pop and, everything that he did, which is a lot of what you went through was the same stuff of teaching you a work ethic, doing what's right, integrity, honor. You can be wrong, admit when you're wrong. It's just one of those things where you grow up learning I don't want to say the right way to do things, but you learn how to do the right thing, as in integrity wise, not necessarily correct or by the book or by the rules, Sometimes you break rules, but your integrity and your honor tells you have to do such things. So yeah, it was kind of cool growing up. We grew up in the country. We cruised town. We didn't have internet. We didn't have cable. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have pagers. If you needed to get a hold of your friend, you went up to Hardee's and waited for them to come by and make the loop, and you waved them down. You guys talked your shit and you went on and did your thing. So, you look back at it now, it was, people go, wow, what a bunch of simpletons. Oh, yeah, we were. It was very simple.
Yeah, but
It was a
in
lot
my
slower
opinion, I
pace.
feel like a simple life is kind of an easier life because you don't have all the essentially bullshit that you deal with in a city and in a downtown setting. I mean, like, and circling back to when you said, when they integrated the schools and they desegregated, from the kid's standpoint and from your standpoint at that age, you're like, all right, cool, more kids to play with. And I feel like, today there's a misunderstanding of people from your generation. And I'm not saying that they're all innocent, because there are bad people, there are inherently racist people, but not everybody from your generation is a racist, evil white person.
No.
And I think we have a disconnect from, a lot of it has to do with technology and a lot of it has to do with social media. All you ever see and hear about are the bad situations and, people that go and beat the fuck out of people for no reason. And that's all you ever hear. You don't hear the good things. You don't hear the positive side of history. And I hate it, honestly, because, being my age and growing up with the generation that I'm growing up with, people go, oh, well, you're white, your dad's white, everybody that's white is racist. It's like, no, I was taught on a different level. I was taught to treat everybody like another human, because at the end of the day, that's all we are. We're all human, and we all need to treat each other with respect and with honor and integrity, like you said. And I just feel like technology has given that disconnect between the younger generation and the older generation. Because really and honestly, a lot of times that same disconnect is seen in the household, where you have older family members that don't understand technology, younger family members that do. And in a lot of cases, that itself can cause a disconnect between those two family members, because one doesn't get it. One is trying to get the other person to get it, and creates a frustration, creates a divide. And I think that divide carries over into everyday life nowadays, and we see it.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's okay to be wrong. And this all ties into the whole technology thing. You have the keyboard warriors in social media that just can't accept that they might be wrong. And I'm not saying that they are wrong, but there's that possibility that they might. And I don't think they're ready for that conversation to understand the concept that they can be right, or can be wrong, rather.
No, we've complicated things. I mean, we lived a simple life because it was slower paced and there was not the distractions. July 4th, if I were to back up July 4th, 47 years ago, I'd have been 10 years old. I still actually kind of remember it. You went to the lake, to somebody's house that had a house on the lake. The kids would swim all day. You kind of do your own fireworks, you cook hamburgers and stuff. The parents would just sit. Everybody would just do a lot of sitting. Kids are playing in the lake. And that was it. In summertime, you sat on porches a lot. We had TV. I don't want to say it was like, it wasn't medieval times, but you did a lot of slower things. You went and visited with people. You spent a lot of time in town because that's where, you got to see everybody. You'd visit at the grocery store, or, the dudes, we still had a barbershop. And, I could do a whole show with you on the masculinity crisis. So I can tie it all back to when we quit having barbershops.
Which are making a comeback, I will say. Quick little shout out to a buddy of mine that just started a new barbershop, a real legit barbershop here local to me. I'll put his stuff down in the description below.
Yeah, no, I mean, if he doesn't have Playboys back in the back and a deer head on the wall, it's not legit, but whatever. But yeah, some things you can and can't do anymore. But I mean, the whole thing is we were a little bit slower pace, but even in the 60s and 70s, growing up as a child, into a teenager. Here's what it comes down to, and I can make it real simple for the woke and the non-woke on social media. Is really you play in all of this stuff, and you try to take your history and whatever. Here's the thing, man. There's shitty people everywhere, and there's shitty people of every race, color, creed, religion, you name it. I was taught yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Thank you, please, no, thank you, please. Excuse me, yes, ma'am. Hold the door. Load bags, and it didn't matter if you were black, white. Didn't matter. If somebody was older than me, they were yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. And you treated them, anybody that was older than you, you treated with them with the respect that was due. And it pisses me off these days. People go, well, you had to earn my respect. Fuck you. No, I don't. I'm older than you. I've survived this planet longer than you. You got to respect me for that. You want to respect me as a person, you get to know me, then you make the call, but you will, by God, respect the fact that I'm your elder. And we need more people that think like me and Billy Red Horse on Twitter, that, we're the elder statesmen, and, you'll either come to us or we will shove it down your throat, but you're going to learn how to be a righteous human being until you block us. And then that's fine. You're on your own. But no, I mean, it was cool growing up. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's not the worst place to grow up, not the best place, but it was definitely one of those places to where the future was limited. So you either went off to college or you joined the military. And that was really it. Some people went to Athens and went to school for 4 years in Georgia, went on and made their lives, and others joined the military and off they went.
And that's what you did. You moved on and you decided to join the military, and you actually ended up having a very expansive, successful career in the military. You feel comfortable talking on that?
Sure. It's not like it's a secret.
Yeah.
Well, some of it is.
that big Navy flag behind you.
No, I mean, yeah. I left. Let's see. I joined the Army right before I graduated at 17, and because I started school early. So I joined the Army at 17. Went to boot camp right after high school graduation, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Turned around, went to Aberdeen Proving Grounds. It was a 44 B10. Army fools should know what that is. It was a metal worker. I was a welder, sheet metal artist for the Army. Decided I was tired of camping out for a living, so started hunting around. Always been enthralled with aviation since the time I was 3 years old, and took my first trip to Atlanta Hartsfield Airport. But I tried to get into aviation. There was not really much there in the Army, so I switched over to the Navy. Got to do another boot camp in Orlando at the time, and went from there. Did one tour in helos. I was a H2 and H3 helo guy. Then I went to a P3 squadron, and then decided to become a flight engineer on P3s, and wound up retiring as an instructor flight engineer. A little over 5,000 hours in the seat, and retired in 2007 with 24 years of Navy service, 26 years total service. And then immediately went to work for the Navy.
So you have 5,000 hours in the seat of a P3 Orion.
Roughly. Well, on the airplane. I mean, I wasn't in the seat the whole time, but yes, I have 5. I think I forget the number. It's been a long time ago.
So throwing the average number of 5,000, dividing it by 24 hours a day, you have a total of 208.3 repeating days. If you were to sit consistently day after day after day, you would have to sit there for 208 whole fucking days to match the amount of time that you spend on an airplane. And that is a lot. That's a lot of time.
Yeah, I didn't start flying until I was a first class. So I think I have amassed that over, I want to say I started flying, I got qualified in 1992. Yeah, 92 is when I got my wings So I retired in 2007, really quit flying in 2005 for all intents and purposes when I went to staff duty. So, really only about 10, 12, 13 years, so, yeah, that was cool, man. Being a flight engineer was cool. I got to see the world. I've been a lot of places. It had its downside, to a lot of people don't understand the downsides, to it. It's, when I talk about it now and I tell the stories about being a flight engineer, sometimes I get called on podcasts just to talk about that. When I tell the stories, it's really, really cool. And I make it sound really, really cool. And it was. But a lot of times it's just boring shit. But, there's a price you pay for that. And you were a victim of the price. It's, I missed a lot of stuff. So,
I still like to think I turned out all right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, I didn't see you walk. I didn't see, I wasn't there to teach you how to potty train. I wasn't there to do a lot of stuff. Missed a lot of birthdays, a lot of holidays. But it's just, that's the way it is. It was a choice. I'm not bitching about it. I'm not one of those people that will, I don't stand there on Veterans Day.
Well, and I'll tell you right here, and I'll tell you right on this podcast. I mean, growing up, to me, with you being gone, you were fucking saving the world, man. You were a fucking superhero.
You didn't know any different. You didn't know any different. You did all right.
I was usually running around in East Texas with Pawpaw hunting deer, so
you were fine. I mean, you did. Y'all were all right, but yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal. Like I said, I signed up for it. I knew what I was getting into. It was a conscious choice that was made between me and your mom, and it's just the way it was. I don't put a whole lot of. I mean, it was my choice. I don't stand there on Veterans Day at Denny's screaming and give me my goddamn pancakes because I'm a veteran. So yeah, I don't. It's not a big deal.
I mean, honestly, you kind of motivated me to get into the aviation field because and to join the Navy, because I joined the Navy. I was a quartermaster. I did vision communications and navigation. I got out of the Navy, and then I decided, you know what? I like being a mechanic. I'm really good at fixing things. And I ended up going right down the street and going to the Aviation Institute of Maintenance. And I ended up becoming a federally licensed aircraft mechanic, just like you. So, I mean, you kind of, like, yeah, you weren't there when I was a kid, but at the same time, you motivated me to be where I'm at today. And I have a successful career. I love what I do. I love being an aircraft mechanic. I love being a mechanic in general. But for the viewers and listeners that don't know what a P-3 Orion is, correct me if I'm wrong, it is a maritime surveillance aircraft, correct?
Yeah, it's a maritime patrol aircraft. It's based on the Lockheed Electra. It's ancient, it's from a long time ago. But yeah, if you Google P-3 Orion, you'll get about 1,000,003 pictures. 4-engine turboprop, about 120,000 pound gross weight takeoff class aircraft. Yeah, it was fun. I had a blast, man. I got to see a lot of countries. I got to meet a lot of really cool people. Got to do a lot of really cool missions that just recently, were unclassified. Some of the stuff we did in South America with the drug wars and stuff like that. Yeah, it was cool. You get to see a lot of places, a lot of really, really cool people. And, you get to fly around. It's not a bad gig at all.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, you were down in South America. And that's all I knew was that you were down in South America, and now that it's unclassified, you were looking for guerrilla warfare type individuals.
Yeah, we were working some overland stuff.
When I was a kid,
parts of it are still.
When I was a kid and I heard drug guerrillas, I thought it was guerrillas in South America. Yeah. I was like, they don't live there. I was so confused.
Actually, we were down there looking for the rap group, the Gorillas.
Oh,
because of that shitty Sunshine in My Pocket rap song that they had. So,
well, I mean, you weren't going to catch them though
because they was on Loose in the Jungle.
You weren't going to catch them because they flew away in that windmill.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Yeah.
But no, it was cool. While you were looking for guerrilla fighters, you were also helping the people of, I think it was Ecuador.
Yeah, we were based out of Ecuador and El Salvador when we were there. So
El
we did some cool
Salvador.
projects.
Because I remember I used to wear a little seed bead bracelet that you brought back from El Salvador.
Yeah, it was something
Because you were
like
doing
that,
humanitarian missions down there as well.
yeah. We did some cool things. We built some schools. We helped them out. We moved some food. We did some things that were really kind of nice, and it was good to pay back. I tell people when they talk about some places in the U.S. being a shithole third world, I'm like, you don't know third world until you've been to the third world.
Well, they also think third world conditions are, oh, I don't have Wi-Fi for my iPhone.
Yeah, I've been to the third world, and it's shitty. I've been to a lot of shitty places. You've been through my most favorite shitty place in the world.
The literal asshole of the entire world, Djibouti, yes, Africa.
There's no worse place.
For anybody that doesn't know, don't go to Djibouti. It's not a vacation spot. The place is hell. Literal hell.
It used to be hell, and Satan moved out because it was so shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So with your military background, in all of your experiences flying, because you've flown over the North Pole. I know you've told me you've flown over the North Pole. Have you ever flown across Antarctica or anywhere near Antarctica?
The southern part?
Yes, South Pole.
Not really. There's a dedicated squadron for that.
Okay.
It used to be VXN8. That was actually, ironically, based out of Pax River that would go to Christchurch, New Zealand. And they would fly and jump over they had P3s and C-130s that would fly the southern pole. No, the furthest in the southern hemisphere. I guess in Australia. I did some work out of Japan. We did a debt to a little island, and then did some work off of the north and west coast of Australia. So I guess that's really the furthest south I've ever been.
Okay.
That I can think of.
So, and I'm sure you've connected and talked to the guys in the squadrons that frequent Antarctica and the South Pole. In your experience, or anybody experiences that you've talked to, have you ever ran into a more or less unidentified flying object or any extraterrestrial kind of events that you have witnessed or you've heard of in the field, especially around Antarctica? This is a legit question. You've done a lot of missions at
Zoomers. You fucking Zoomers.
I'm not a Zoomer. I'm a millennial.
Y'all and your fucking UFO conspiracies.
Hey, I can't help that the Pentagon just came out and declassified documents that said UFOs are a real thing. Just saying.
Yeah, you know what the documents say?
No, I haven't read them.
Yes, I have. I've seen the executive brief. What it did is the government came out and we confirmed that the flying objects that were previously unidentified are in fact unidentified flying objects.
That's all it was. They just confirmed what we already knew.
Yeah, they're like, we don't know what they are.
Okay, so I'm guessing with that reaction that you have never experienced anything or heard of anything.
I mean, I've seen some weird shit flying around, things that, I mean, I've never been anally probed by an alien, if that's what you're asking.
Well, no, that wasn't the question.
Okay, well, no, I haven't seen a flying saucer. You see a lot of things, and listen, there's a lot of natural, and there's actually a lot of explainable phenomenon that happens when you fly. St. Elmo's fire is a well-known phenomenon that that can really, until recently, and I say recently within the last 50 years, I mean, aviation's only 100 years old, a little more or less, a little bit more than that, 125, something like that. So recently, until somebody understood what St. Elmo's fire was, St. Elmo's fire can actually build up far ahead of the nose of an aircraft. Typically you see it on the windshields. It starts in the windshield wipers. I've sat in the middle seat right in front of a windshield. Now the fireballs will come through the windshield. I've actually had to move and duck because the fireball went down the tube of the airplane.
I remember you telling me that as a kid.
Yeah, but typically it builds up on the windshields, and it dances. You can Google St. Elmo's fire, but it will actually, especially with prop driven aircraft, the static electricity that builds up, obviously, from moving metal through the air in a highly charged atmosphere will create things. A lot of things you see too is when it thunderstorms at night. if you never spent a lot of time flying, most of the time you're in a passenger plane, and passenger planes are going way around thunderstorms, and you're sitting in the back, you can't really see. When you sit up front and you're seeing thunderstorms at 200-300 miles away, there's things called lightning sprites, and lightning will shoot up through a cloud, and you don't see it until it can be thousands of feet above the top of the cloud, and it looks like a little lighted disc because it's a lightning sprite. So I mean, there's that, things like that. Fighter pilots tend to see more of them than patrol pilots, and it could be because of the speed of the aircraft. It could be some of the, who knows. I mean, you see some things that, you hear the old stories, swamp gas, you see reflections off clouds, goofy shit. I honestly saw more weird, unexplained, unidentified things in some of the bars that I went into on Liberty than I ever did in flying in the airplane. So
now there was a fighter pilot that was stationed to the USS Nimitz, based out of San Diego, who said that he caught on radar, and he saw it. He ended up seeing it in person, but on radar they had this blip of something at like 80,000 feet in altitude or something like that. And within one rotation of that radar blip, it was 5 feet off the surface of the water. There, he saw this little pill. It almost looked like a tic tac. That's what they're calling it, the tic tac event. And he said this thing just darted off. There was no visible thing of propulsion. And I mean, if it's something that they can pick up on radar, that doesn't seem like it's going to be a lightning sprite or anything like that. It seems like it would have to be within a range to get picked up by radar.
Yeah, I mean, you can pick up a lot of things on radar. And you got to remember, too, in a lot of the fighters, we had them on P3s. We had inversion. It's been a long time since I've said it. So let's see. Inverse synthetic aptitude radar, ISAR radar, which takes a lot of readings, and it basically is a radar that paints a picture of a boat. So in the old days on a P3 with our old APSWIM 15 radar, if we'd have seen, the USS Kidd at 100 miles on radar, we paint it and it looks like a tic tac on the radar screen. With ISAR, we can paint it at 100 miles, and I actually see it looks like I'm looking at the side profile of the USS Kidd. I mean, I can see everything.
Okay.
So sometimes you'll pick up funny things with that. I mean, I'm not, listen, I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm not saying it's never happened. I'm just saying I don't make a big deal out of it. I'm more worried about, really, let's think about it, man. The common era, if aliens were to land here and see what's going on, you think they're going to want to hang around?
No, they're gonna implode the world for us before we even get a chance to do it ourselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's I never really saw anything or witnessed anything, but I mean, there's people out there that have, and I'm not going to discount it because I'm a strong believer in, one of those things of, hey, I wasn't there. I never, ever, ever made it a habit of either during a malfunction, an emergency situation with another crew, a mishap, anything that ever happened. I never, ever, ever played Monday morning quarterback and try to go back and evaluate and judge them because at the time, aviation is fast. Everything happens in a compression of time. Seconds seem like minutes seem like hours, but everything's compressed and everything happens really, really, really fast. So I'm not going to sit there and question anybody that says they saw something. If you did, you did. Good on you. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty much in your experience, you haven't experienced anything, and as far as your stance on it right now is, you'll believe it when you see it, more or less.
Yeah,
like you believe they could be out there, but until you see it, you're not going to make a definitive statement whether they exist or not.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at it from kind of a philosophical level of, when you look up at night and you see all these stars, you're only seeing a fraction of the total stars that are in the universe.
Yeah.
We only see one little section of our own little galaxy. Our own little galaxy is just a pinpoint in the universe. So out of all of those suns, all of those stars that could be a sun, they have solar systems. Out of all of that stuff, if for some reason that we think that some old man in the sky has deity deemed that we're the only living species in this vast universe, I don't buy that. I mean, I'm sure there's other forms of something, but who am I to know? I mean, I'm not there to question it. So,
I mean, when it comes to that, The reason that I don't believe that we're the only creatures to exist is there's one species of jellyfish that, and I bring this up almost every episode because it just absolutely fascinates me. There's a species of jellyfish known as the immortal jellyfish. Scientists have caught some of them. They found them in some of the deepest parts of the oceans that they can get to now, because right now we haven't built anything that can withstand the pressure of the deepest parts of our ocean. They found this immortal jellyfish. They brought it back to the lab. They studied it. They did DNA sequencing on it. This jellyfish, whenever the salinity in the water changes too drastically or the temperature changes too drastically, what this jellyfish does, it actually breaks off the nucleus of itself, plants it in the dirt, and restarts its life cycle. And the scientists have found in the DNA sequences, carbon dating the actual DNA itself, that some of these jellyfish, their DNA has yet to experience death. Like from the dawn of its existence, it has yet, and they've clocked it as being around since I think they've clocked it around being since the Mesozoic period. Like this thing has survived for forever, and there's some that have not experienced death yet. So that's why I don't believe that we're the holy and omnipotent only creatures in the entire universe. There's no way. There's absolutely no way.
Never know.
I mean, it's a 1 in a billion chance that a planet falls in that Goldilocks zone of having the right atmosphere and the right temperature, being the right distance away from the sun, and holding water and having microbial life. There's just, it's 1 in a billion, but there's also multiple quintillions of stars, and those are the only ones that we know. There could be more out there that we have no clue.
You're assuming a life form that has the same requirements that we do as well.
Exactly, and there could be different life requirements. Then again, this all could just be one big version of the Truman Show.
Could be.
That movie with Jim Carrey.
Maybe we really are just riding on a turtle.
So I remembered this picture that I took. I took a screenshot, and this is I want your thought process on this. It says, New York City sending a text to residents to turn down the air conditioning while leaving Times Square's lit up is a great example of how the individual responsibility to stop climate change has been pushed to redirect our focus away from the corporations and failed government policy causing the most harm. Me personally, I agree with that, because right now New York City is also sending texts to their residents to turn off the air conditioning because the natural gas electricity production plants can't keep up, but yet a few miles down the road in Philadelphia, the Limerick nuclear production plant is producing electricity for Philadelphia, and they have not a single issue. So why are we constantly having a push to get away from nuclear and getting away from coal when the U.S. has the cleanest coal in the entire world, and nuclear, while yes, may be more expensive, is actually the cleaner and better, more efficient option for the utilities that we use every day, especially electricity. That's a big one, especially in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the way that I'm looking at it is, I'm not necessarily looking at it as an anti-government, but I think the government has no say on how I should have an impact on climate change.
Well, I mean, I think the simple answer to that is people are fucking morons. I mean, we proved years ago nuclear power is safe and efficient. You let one little incident like 3 Mile Island or Chernobyl. You can't let Chernobyl. You can't look at the Fujiwama, whatever the fuck
Fujiyama,
whatever in Japan. Yeah, Fujiyama too. You can't look at that. I mean, there's going to be a risk, and there's a risk and a reward with everything. And risk, people today, and especially the younger generation of the people that are yapping on social media, as they sit in their air-conditioned home with their Wi-Fi, and streaming at unbelievable rates of data transfer. Your iPhone holds 72 times the computing power of the lunar lander of the Apollo mission that landed on the moon. So,
and that was what, 50 years ago?
Wasn't that long ago. Yeah, no, it wasn't that long ago, 50 years ago. But anyway, I mean, so government is going to send out a text and go, hey, turn your shit up, turn thermostats up so you don't need enough electricity. And you're going to pay more rates for it anyway, because we have to subsidize all of those people that the government deems are too lazy or too sick to work. We got to subsidize them so that they can stay nice and cool too. But, we've got plenty of alternatives, and nuclear is relatively safe. Um, you can't you you can't take the metrics. You have to apply it to risk management, and nobody knows how to do risk management anymore. Um, two people are too risk adverse. There's risk in everything.
I mean, that
There's
goes
a
back
risk
to
in
earlier where I was saying that technology with now it's made us essentially weak. Nobody wants to admit that they're wrong. And
yeah. I don't think it's made us weak. It's made us dumb.
yeah,
We take too many things for granted. Um, you know, we've allowed so many things to occur through either good intentions with bad processes or bad intentions with good processes. Forest management out west, you have all these wildfires because we used to go off and we used to set burning fires on the forest floor so that when lightning would strike, we wouldn't have these massive wildfires. Well, somebody saw the crimson crested red boobed titmouse, and there was 3 of these birds living in this forest, and so we can't go in and log, we can't go in and clear the underbrush. Meanwhile, Mother Nature, who really doesn't give a fuck about us and never has, hits a lightning strike and we burn the forest down, and all of these Californians that want to live up in the woods and the mountains get all pissy because their house burned down. Okay, well, you live there. We had a good forest management plan that mimicked Mother Nature. We were doing the same things Mother Nature was doing in the past. It's just like we rerouted the Mississippi years ago. Why? Well, we needed to make sure the river went by New Orleans for port traffic. Well, we also fucked up the Delta floodplain, and we caused, the rivers flood for a reason, and it's not a bad thing, man. These 100-year floods deposit a lot of soil.
fresh soil for new crops.
Well, if you go back and you look at the way that the Native Americans, and I don't really want to insult them by calling them Americans, but if you look at the first peoples, the way that they managed the land, they weren't smart. They didn't have a college education. They didn't go to a liberal arts school. They didn't have social media. They watched nature and they learned the cycles of nature. And so they knew, they're like, hey man, in the spring, this floodplain is going to flood. We're going to move, and we're going to move inland, and we're going to hunt in the spring in the woods and up in the hills. And then when summer comes and the animals are going through their cycle, we're going to come back to this floodplain that now has all this fertile soil, and we're going to plant our crops, squash and beans, and we're going to plant our crops. And they just knew the cycle. It's just like when they moved in the wintertime. They followed the game, but they also, people go, well, we're not a hunter-gatherer society anymore. Well, I beg to differ. We are in a sense, but we don't learn the cycles of nature, and you don't watch what happens. So, do we need electricity? Yeah, we're always going to need electricity. Is coal necessarily the way to go? It's not bad. I mean, we've got other things.
I'm good with coal technology. Or nuclear. I mean, because coal. Yeah, because America right now, I think per silo of coal that they mine has 7 scrubbers in each silo, whereas China, you're lucky to find 1 scrubber in their entire operation.
Yeah,
America has the cleanest coal. And plus, we have out west, I think it's, and I could be wrong on this, but I think it's Montana, Wyoming, out there. There's a whole coal deposit that is naturally clean burning, and it's the only naturally clean burning coal in the world. Why are we not focused on that?
Well, you got to look at a lot of it too, man. I've learned over my life, you always follow the money, and you follow the money to who's paying off who. There's a reason why Keystone XL got killed. Warren Buffett and his crew, they own the railroads. The railroads need to move coal, and they need to move the oil in the tankers. Keystone was cutting out their profit from having the rail cars. So when you buy a president, you buy what you want, and that's what happens. And that's not just this administration. That's been through the dawn of time.
Well, I think there's too much focus from conservationists and from the government focusing on just the fuel issue. I mean, everybody's pushing for these electric cars, which electric cars are great. Yes, there's no carbon monoxide filling the atmosphere. However, the lithium mines that they have to mine to build these car batteries, they're fucking massive. And a lithium mine, you can't do anything once it's mined. Once that ground is tore the fuck up, you're done. But not only that, like you said, the rivers need to flood to deposit fertile soil in these flood banks, right? But we have pushed, and we have so many fucking people here that we've pushed to monocrop agriculture. And monocrop agriculture is what's killing the actual literal earth. Because if you plant corn and corn and corn and corn and corn, you suck up all the nitrates out of the soil. That soil is now dead. You can't do shit with it. But it's such a push. You look across this nation, you see all these massive fields that are decimated and the woods that are decimated for monocrop agriculture, when it's like, no, you could have all these different farms but have different crops, cycle them. This monocrop agriculture is what's killing the environment more than anything. And I think that we need to redirect the focus from just fuel and, emissions output to also this other shit that's tearing up the earth that we have to live here. We have to make it last.
There's a trade-off. There's a trade-off for everything. People have to learn how to balance it. Everything's a balance. You have to learn the trade-offs. People aren't going to turn their lights off. We're not going to go back to Little House on the Prairie. We're going to advance. And things go through cycles. Things go through stages. I went through the gas crisis in the early 70s. I remember that. I'd even, couldn't get gas because the Arabs shut off the tap because of politics. I saw coal. I've seen nuclear. I've seen all this stuff. At the end of the day, we're going to do whatever it takes to keep the lights on.
I'm going to leave you with one point. I want to tell you something that I saw on Facebook that I thought was absolutely mind-boggling and hilarious at the same time. I saw a post from the South Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles of how and when to use your blinkers when turning in your vehicle. And I saw it, and I giggled, and in the next breath, I yelled, "What the actual fuck?"
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to remember too a couple of things. Yeah, while that is probably it'll rank up there with one of the stupidest things you'll see on the internet. I mean, first of all, Facebook is the devil, Bobby Boucher. But other than that, I mean, you got to remember Stacy, who is a 22-year-old media graphics major, has got her job at the Department of South Carolina, and her job is to make social media posts for the Department of Transportation. So in order to get the clickbait out, she's got a quota the post that she has to make. So somebody said, "Hey, you know what? Why don't we do a public service to tell people when they need to use their blinkers?" I mean, yeah, it's almost like if you've ever seen the movie WALL-E, when all of the little fat blobs in their little pods, we're slowly becoming the little fat blobs in our pods. And the thing is too, is this just comes along with the general state is, I think that we've lost an art of critical thinking. And when I say critical thinking, everybody has this thing wrapped around it like it's some business concept, which it is. But it's really critical thinking is just the why. It's asking the so whats and the whys until you get to the end and there is no more whys. And that gets you to the root of whatever the topic is. And I say that to say that what I mean by we don't critically think anymore is we just take whatever we see and we just accept it. We quit thinking. We quit going, "Hey, what? Why? Why are we, what? Why? Why? So what? What's the so what?"
I think people don't. They just why.
Listen and go.
But I think it's people are afraid to say why, because if you ask why, well, now you're criticizing my point of view. You're misogynistic. You're racist, and I'm going to cancel you. Yeah, you get yelled at for trying to voice your opinion as well. I think that's why a lot of people are afraid to ask why now. But it's also gotten us to where we're at, and I think it's also a detachment from humanity.
you don't have to ask why out loud all the time. I mean, that's the biggest thing. That's the other biggest issue I have with society now is, you know, back in the day we had a saying, opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one and they all stink. You know, I don't care what you think. I really don't. I mean, it sounds cruel to say that, but I really don't care. Nobody cares about you. You know, the old thing, nobody's coming to save you. They're really not. Nobody cares about how hard you work. It's like, hey, you know, hey, Kathy, it is like, it's so cool that you went out to the gym and you posted a picture on Instagram that nobody gives a shit you're on the elliptical. You know, good for you.
Nobody gives a shit. Congratulations.
I mean, that's the thing. And, you know, people, you can critically think to yourself. Go and do your own research, form your own theories and hypotheses and work through them, work through all of these things, get it in your mind the way it is, but then shut your damn mouth. You don't have to tell everybody. You know, I think that's a lot of it too. A lot of people go out looking for validation because we don't have that structure anymore to where you could go, you know, I go back to the beginning of our talk and we talk about, you know, hey, we used to sit in our cars at Hardee's or the town square or wherever, and everybody parked their cars and you get out and you just shoot the shit. You know, you'd pop hoods, you'd talk stuff, you'd talk shit to each other, but you would talk things through and you'd say something and people like, man, dude, you're full of shit, man. And you'd be like, really? Why? Well, I heard this. What? Oh, well, I didn't know that. Yeah. And or they go, well, I didn't hear that. You lost a lot of that. That's how we used to do things. That was a social interaction before we had social media. It's a lot different when you're going to talk shit in front of somebody that when they're within reach of getting punched in the face, it's a little bit different. You're not quite so quick to spout off and be disrespectful. And when you're less disrespectful, you can't help but be more open. When you're worried about not getting your ass whipped, you know, if we're going to have a one-on-one conversation and there's that we're human animals we're programmed to be polite and we're programmed to have interchange and be able to read body language and be able to read facial expressions and be able to hear tone of voice, you know, so that you can kind of gauge yourself of where you're going to go in this. And when you back off and you're not quite so quick to go, God, I'll show you. When your mind opens up and you're a little more apt to open your mind and take a different idea or a different viewpoint and go, I don't know that he's right, but I'm not going to say anything because he's going to freaking punch me.
Well,
but you're forced to think about it.
And I think we're starting to see that change now that, you know, the COVID regulations are starting to back off and things are starting to open back up. I'm sure you saw the video of the Twisted Tea. I guarantee you that dude that was running his mouth was a keyboard warrior and he got his shit wrecked. He ran his mouth, he got wrecked. And guess what? I guarantee you he's not going to talk shit again, or he's going to think twice about talking shit again.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that you have to look at too, man, is everything changes when you're in person. I remember being in high school, you know, and you meet me out at the flagpole. All right. So you go to the flagpole and all the kids would gather around and you'd stand there and you'd be like, well, I'm here.
Where you at?
I'm here too. Punch me. You throw it.
No, you punch me first. You punch me first.
You throw it. I'm like, man, and I had a lot of those situations. I got caught. I got clocked a couple of times. I clocked somebody a couple of times. But I would say the majority of it, we would stand there and we'd do the dance. And the crowd would get antsy and go, you know what? Fuck you guys.
Yeah, y'all be peacocking until everybody left. And then you'd be like, all right, hey, man, we cool? Yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah, we're cool. You know, we're good. And it turns out it was usually over something very, very stupid. But, I mean, that was the thing. That's how you learned how to interact. And we don't do that now because kids, if you try to drag a kid out to the flagpole, somebody's going to go home for being bullied. Somebody's going to go home for being a bully. It's going to go to court. I think the biggest thing I saw the other day is the Supreme Court of the United States of America, the 9 justices that are the highest court in the land, set forth in the Constitution. I mean, they can't be elected. They have to be chosen through a process. They are the supreme law. Milestone cases have gone to the United States Supreme Court. Brown versus Education, the Equal Rights Act, the abortion
Roe v. Wade.
law. Roe v. Wade went to the Supreme Court. So now the Supreme Court had to rule the other day on a Texas mom's cheerleader who, because this girl, she went out for junior varsity cheerleading and she plays softball. So she went out for varsity cheerleading and didn't make the team. She didn't make the cheerleading team. So she left school. She went to the 7-Eleven or whatever, and she was out there getting her Slurpee. And she gets on TikTok or whatever, and she tweets, fuck school, fuck cheerleading, fuck the system, fuck everything.
Okay.
And she blasted it out on social media. All right, well, I got it. We've all done stupid shit like that. So her softball coach sees it, and they suspend her from playing softball for the rest of the year. So the girl's in high school. She's not 18 years old. She's not of legal voting age or an adult. So here's the situation as we have it. So this young high school girl, she's mad because she didn't make the varsity cheerleading team. She goes to 7-Eleven. She gets on social media, does a rant, fuck you, fuck everybody, fuck this, fuck that. She posted online. Her coach sees it, says, you're suspended for the rest of the year because you said fuck softball. You're not going to play on the softball team. So where this all wound up and how this ties into the Supreme Court, her parents, who are 30-something years old, instead of doing what I would have done to you, going, hey, you dipshit, you probably shouldn't have sent that out on social media. Go in there and delete that, and you need to call your coach and everybody that saw it, and you need to apologize to them. You don't talk like that on the internet. And oh, by the way, you didn't make varsity, too fucking bad. Boo-hoo. Practice harder. Try it again next year.
Yeah.
In fact, you had a couple of times where you didn't make some kind of team and you came home ready to piss off at the world. And I just looked at you and said, well, fucking practice harder.
Yeah, work harder.
Or maybe you just suck at this. What was it, swimming?
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you swim like a goddamn concrete block.
Yeah.
Just face it. Well, goddamn it, I should have made the team. I was fat. Oh, shut the fuck up. You were not. I watched you swim. You swim like a brick. You know, you tried. Good on you. I give you mad props for that.
I can swim. I just can't swim fast.
But shut your mouth. You can't swim good. So stop your bitching about it. And it goes back to when I was a kid. I didn't make Little League. I cried and pissed and moaned. And my dad says, get your glove and your baseball and let's go out here and start practicing. Next year, you'll be better. So instead, these parents, they sued the school system, blah, blah, blah. It goes on, it goes on. It goes to the Supreme Court as her First Amendment right to be able to be off of school grounds and tweet or TikTok, something like that. So this is what we have our Supreme Court fighting these days.
Is TikToks.
And they wonder why the Chinese are going to invade us and kill us all.
And it wouldn't be hard.
China is speeding to war. And we have a president who's trying to deep throat ice cream, and the media thinks it's funny.
And so also trying to nuke his own citizens twice.
They're
threatening.
I will say that he said that to take on the government, the citizen needs F-15s.
Okay, let me buy one.
I can hook you up with that. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. We'll talk about that off the podcast. Jokes,
anyway,
NSA,
hey,
jokes, NSA.
You're coming up on your hour.
Yep.
My butt's getting numb.
I thank you for coming out. Where can people find you if they want to hear some legendary wisdom?
So listen, here's the thing, man. Couple of things. First of all, I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment and tell your listeners this is being recorded on July 4th, the birthday of our decision to make a really mean tweet to Britain and tell them, fuck you, we're done with your stupid shit. We've had enough. But I'll leave this with everybody. Take a moment tonight or the next day, tomorrow, if you're off work for the observed holiday, take a moment and just look up the Declaration of Independence and read it. Read the whole thing. Everybody knows when in the course of human events. But, I tell everybody, read the whole thing. And it really was just a big bitch list. Here's why we don't like the king. And here's why we're going to take off and do our own thing, which is really cool. But I always direct everybody. There were 30-something young men that ranged anywhere from their early 20s to their 60s and 70s. The average age, I think, was 33 years old, of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. But the one thing is these guys all got together and they decided to do this. And it was a commitment by all of them. They were all in. And they exemplified that in the very last sentence of the Declaration of Independence. And this set the tone for it. And this is how they really let King know that they weren't fucking around. Is these men pledged with the help of God and providence, that to this endeavor they pledged their fortunes, their lives, and their sacred honor. So the three things that these men had at that time: they had money because they were farmers, they had their lives because we all want to live, but also their sacred honor. They weren't going to quit on each other. And to a person, out of the 35 signers of the Declaration of Independence, not one of them backed down, not one of them changed sides, not one of them gave up. Most of them got killed. Their families and their houses got burned. Some got hung. A lot got shot. Some were left destitute. They had no money after this. But they weren't going to quit on each other because it was their sacred honor. They would rather have died penniless and in a violent manner than to give up on the people that they had made this pledge to. So I take everybody, that's where our society needs to get back to. We need to get back to a life of honor. We need to get back to a life of purpose. We need to get back to lives of things bigger than ourselves. You're not special, snowflake. You're not that great. But when you do something that's a little bit bigger than yourself, and it doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to join the military and go out and kill commies for mommy. You don't have to be a doctor and a brain surgeon and cure cancer. Here's what I tell people to do. If you see a person that's struggling, and it could be a mother with kids trying to load a case of bottled water into her car, load the bottle of water in her car, hold the door for somebody, buy somebody a coffee, and don't make a big deal out of it.
Hey, don't go put an appreciation post on social media about it. Oh, I did such a good thing.
Say a kind word, pet a dog, pick up trash is how you do things. And I always told you, integrity is what you do when people aren't looking. That's how you're going to be judged in this world and in the next world. So I tell people that, hey, take a minute and think about honor. That's what I talk about on Twitter. I talk about leadership. I talk about what's your why, knowing why you're why. Simon Sinek on YouTube is a great person who's influenced me a lot lately. Some folks, you can find me on Twitter. I am at Chief Chuck 2K on Twitter. Facebook, don't even bother. It's not worth your time. I don't do the Instagram, and I don't do TikTok for sure because I can't twerk. So usually you can go to chiefchuck.com. It's my website. I haven't been on there active lately, but there's a lot of blog posts and just short stories that I've written. I'm going to get more active again here soon. A couple other folks that you can run with me, Jonathan Pritchard. That's Pritchard, Elite University, ELITE University. He's a big influence, and he's also a mind reader. He's got a great show. And you heard me mention at the Gentleman Mystic at Billy Red Horse. He's my partner in crime with the Gray Wave. You can find us all on Twitter. Go give me a follow. You can DM me. I answer usually within a couple of days, unless you're just a freak and you're asking me to send like nude pics, and then I'm gonna block. Actually, I'm gonna punish you and send you a nude pic of myself.
And that, yes, I can attest to that. Yes, you don't want it. So, like I said, all for the viewers and listeners, links will be in the description of the MP3 format and the video format on YouTube. So go ahead, click those links, go drop some follows, go show them some love. And remember, be respectful, be kind to one another, help one another. Thanks, guys. See you next time. What's up, everyone? Thank you for watching the podcast. If you enjoyed the show and want to help make it even better, follow the PayPal link or take a peek at the Amazon wishlist link below. Make sure to subscribe and like, and tell everyone you know. See you next time.